The muddy water from Jake Morrison's mop bucket splashed across the pristine white sneakers of 3 teenagers who had cornered him in the hallway. But instead of apologizing, they just laughed harder. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible tales, and drop a comment below. I love hearing your thoughts. Look what you did, janitor boy, sneered Tyler, the quarterback whose daddy bought him everything from his car to his college admission. These shoes cost more than you make in a month. Jake Morrison, 62 years old with silver hair and hands weathered by 40 years of honest work, simply bent down to clean up the spill. He'd been the custodian at Riverside High for 8 years now, and he'd learned that responding to bullies, even teenage ones, only made things worse. I'm sorry, he said quietly, wringing out his mop. Let me clean that up for you. Sorry doesn't pay for new shoes, Madison chimed in, flipping her perfectly styled blonde hair. She was the principal's daughter, untouchable in her own mind. Maybe you should get a real job instead of cleaning up after your betters. Their friend Ethan pulled out his phone, recording as Jake worked. This is going to be hilarious on TikTok. Old man janitor can't even push a mop without making a mess. This wasn't the first time. For months, these 3 had made Jake's life miserable. They'd accidentally knock over his carefully organized supplies, leave extra messes in the bathrooms, and whisper cruel jokes as he passed. They saw him as nothing more than hired help, invisible except when they needed someone to mock. What they didn't know was that every evening, Jake went home to a modest apartment where he sat at a small desk, surrounded by financial newspapers and multiple computer screens showing stock prices, cryptocurrency values, and market trends. What they didn't know was that Jake Morrison wasn't just a janitor. He was one of the most successful day traders on the East Coast. Years ago, Jake had been a Wall Street executive, making millions and living in a penthouse. But when his wife Sarah was diagnosed with cancer, he'd stepped away from the high-stress world to care for her. After she passed, he found he couldn't return to that life. The money felt meaningless, the corporate world hollow. So he took a simple job as a custodian, finding peace in honest work while continuing to trade from home. His portfolio was worth over $12 million, but he lived simply, finding more satisfaction in a clean hallway than he ever had in a corporate boardroom. The bullying continued for weeks. Tyler would accidentally bump into Jake's cart, sending supplies scattering. Madison would make snide comments about his old clothes and worn shoes. Ethan documented it all, building a collection of videos that painted Jake as a pathetic figure to be mocked. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday in March. Jake was cleaning the main hallway when the 3 students approached with their usual swagger. Hey janitor Jake, Tyler called out. Heard you've been here 8 years. That's like a lifetime sentence of being a nobody. Madison laughed. I bet he never even went to college. Probably peaked in high school, if he even finished. My dad says people like him are what's wrong with America, Ethan added, phone already recording. No ambition, no drive, just accepting mediocrity. Jake paused in his mopping, something shifting in his weathered face. You know, he said quietly, you're right about one thing. I have been here 8 years. See? Told you, Tyler smirked. 8 years of learning, Jake interrupted, his voice steady. 8 years of watching students like you assume that a person's worth is determined by their job title or their clothes or the car they drive. Madison rolled her eyes. Whatever, old man. Keep telling yourself your little janitor job matters. Jake set down his mop and looked directly at each of them. Tomorrow is career day. Your teachers have asked several community members to speak about their professions. I've been invited to participate. What are you going to talk about? Ethan snorted. The exciting world of toilet cleaning? Jake smiled, the first genuine smile they'd ever seen from him. Something like that. Don't forget to smash that like button if the story is keeping you on the edge of your seat. Subscribe for more amazing stories, and let me know in the comments what you think happens next. The next morning, career day arrived with all the usual fanfare. The gymnasium was filled with booths representing various professions. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, business owners. Students rotated through in groups, listening to presentations about different career paths. Tyler, Madison, and Ethan found themselves assigned to a session called Financial Independence and Investment Strategies. They groaned, expecting a boring lecture about savings accounts and retirement planning. They walked into the classroom and froze. Standing at the front, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, was Jake Morrison. But this wasn't the humble custodian they knew. This man commanded the room with quiet confidence. His silver hair styled impeccably, his posture straight and authoritative. "Good morning," Jake said, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to boardrooms and high-stakes decisions. "My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm here to talk to you about financial literacy, investment strategies, and the importance of never judging a book by its cover." The students stared in stunned silence. Tyler's mouth literally hung open. Jake clicked a remote, and the projector screen lit up with a portfolio summary that made several students gasp. Stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, real estate investments, a diversified portfolio worth $12.3 million. "This is my current investment portfolio," Jake said calmly. "I've been actively trading for over 20 years. Last month alone, I made more in capital gains than most people earn in 5 years." Madison's face had gone white. Ethan's phone, which he'd reflexively pulled out to record, remained frozen in his hand. "But Mr. Morrison," a student from the back called out, confusion evident in her voice, "aren't you our school janitor?" Jake smiled. "I am indeed a custodian here at Riverside High, and I'm proud of that work. But I'm also a day trader, a real estate investor, and someone who learned long ago that a person's job doesn't define their worth, their character does." He clicked to the next slide, showing a graph of his trading success over the years. "I started with $5,000 23 years ago. Through careful research, calculated risks, and disciplined investing, I've built substantial wealth. But more importantly, I've learned that money without purpose is meaningless." Tyler finally found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. But why do you work as a janitor if you're so rich?" Jake's expression softened. "Because after my wife died, I realized that the corporate world had become empty for me. I found more satisfaction in keeping this school clean, in being part of a community, than I ever did in a corner office. This job gives me purpose and peace. The trading pays the bills and funds my charitable giving." He clicked again, showing records of donations to scholarship funds, food banks, and educational programs. "Last year, I donated over $400,000 to various charities, including a fund that provides free lunches for students who can't afford them." The room was dead silent except for the hum of the projector. "I've watched some of you for months," Jake continued, his gaze settling briefly on Tyler, Madison, and Ethan. "I've seen how you treat people you perceive as beneath you. You've made assumptions about my intelligence, my education, my worth as a human being, all based on the fact that I clean floors and empty trash cans." Madison looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. "But here's what you missed," Jake said. "I have an MBA from Wharton. I speak 3 languages. I've traveled to 47 countries. I've read over 3,000 books. I can tell you about market volatility and quantum physics and Renaissance art. The only difference between me and the people you respect is that I choose to find dignity in work that serves others." He paused, letting that sink in. "Real wealth isn't just about money. It's about character, kindness, and how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. The way you treat the janitor, the waitress, the security guard, that's who you really are." After the presentation, as students filed out in stunned silence, Tyler, Madison, and Ethan remained seated, unable to move. Jake packed up his materials, then approached their table. Up close, they could see the quality of his suit, the expensive watch, the confident bearing of someone comfortable with success. "Mr. Morrison," Tyler stammered, We didn't know." "That's exactly the point," Jake said gently. "You didn't know, but you assumed. You decided that because I pushed a mop, I must be stupid, uneducated, worth less than you. You never bothered to see me as a complete human being." Madison's eyes filled with tears. "We're so sorry. We were horrible to you." "Yes, you were," Jake agreed. "But you're also young, and young people can change. The question is, what are you going to do with this lesson?" That afternoon, something unprecedented happened at Riverside High. 3 of the school's most popular students were seen apologizing to their custodian in front of half the school. Tyler publicly deleted the mocking videos from his social media. Madison started a campaign to recognize and appreciate all school staff. Ethan began volunteering at the local food bank. But the real change happened gradually over the following weeks and months. Students who had never acknowledged Jake before began greeting him by name. Teachers who had barely noticed him started engaging in conversations. The hallways felt different, more respectful, more aware. Jake continued his dual life, mopping floors by day and managing millions by night. But now he did so with the satisfaction of knowing he'd taught an entire school community about the danger of assumptions and the value of treating everyone with dignity. 6 months later, at graduation, Tyler approached Jake after the ceremony. The young man had grown up considerably, his arrogance replaced by genuine humility. "Mr. Morrison," he said, "I wanted to thank you. That day changed my life. I'm going to business school next year, and I want to be the kind of person who builds others up instead of tearing them down." Jake smiled, adjusting his janitor's uniform. "That's the best graduation gift I could ask for." As Tyler walked away, Jake returned to cleaning up after the celebration. But now, instead of working in invisible anonymity, he worked surrounded by the quiet respect of people who had learned to see beyond surface appearances. If this story touched your heart or taught you something valuable, please give it a like and subscribe for more powerful stories that matter. And definitely comment below. I'd love to hear about a time when someone surprised you by being more than they appeared to be. The following Monday, something extraordinary happened. A sleek black limousine pulled up to Riverside High just as students were arriving for school. The driver, wearing a crisp uniform, stepped out and opened the rear door. Jake Morrison emerged, wearing his custodian's uniform but carrying himself with unmistakable dignity. The students who had gathered to stare at the unusual sight watched in amazement as their janitor nodded to the driver and walked toward the school entrance. "Mr. Morrison," called out Sarah Chan, a sophomore who had been one of the first to start treating him with newfound respect. "Was that your limo?" Jake paused, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Sometimes it's important to remind people that you should never judge anyone based on appearances," he said. "That driver? He's working his way through law school. The owner of the limo company? She started with 1 car and built an empire. And me? I'm just a janitor who happens to understand that every honest job has dignity, and every person deserves respect." As he walked into the school, students parted respectfully, many of them greeting him warmly. Tyler, Madison, and Ethan, now in their senior year, had become some of his strongest advocates, often seen helping him with tasks and defending him when new students showed disrespect. The limo became a monthly tradition, Jake's way of keeping the lesson alive, of reminding everyone that assumptions are dangerous and that true worth comes from character, not appearances. Years later, when former students returned to visit, they would often seek out Jake Morrison, the janitor who had taught them the most valuable lesson of their education. That respect, kindness, and human dignity matter infinitely more than job titles or bank accounts. And Jake? He continued cleaning floors, managing his millions, and proving every single day that the content of someone's character is the only measure that truly matters. The real treasure wasn't in his portfolio. It was in the lives he had changed and the lesson he had taught. Never judge a book by its cover, because you might just discover that the person you're overlooking has more wisdom, wealth, and worth than you ever imagined.